Hello, and welcome to the Media Center's 10th Local Hero Award series, in which we showcase 5 people from the Mid-Peninsula for outstanding achievement or contributions to the community. We solicited nominations and were especially looking for the unsung heroes. Each winner is an inspiration, and each has a great story to tell. Roger Vernon Smith is a retired banker, founder of the Silicon Valley Bank, perhaps not someone you might associate with a life in the nonprofit world. But upon retirement, that's what he became. He has chosen to devote his encore career to 2 causes: Palo Alto Parks, which has included the creation of Heritage Park, Lytton Plaza, and the Magical Bridge in Mitchell Park. His other focus, which prompted this award nomination, is the families of murder victims. Hello. He created MAM, for Mothers Against Murder, and is the sole financial backer of the organization. Roger, you were a banker. You now are an advocate for the families of murder victims. Where did that come from? What prompted this?
Well, after I retired, my wife and I would read the papers in the morning and look at different things happening and notice that there would be someone murdered several years ago and they would still be not tried yet. We said, this doesn't make sense. So we formed Mothers Against Murder, very much like MAD, Mothers Against Drunk Driving, to take a look at this awful happening to these families.
So the number one prompt was the lag in justice, essentially.
The closure, because there's never closure in a murder, but if you could get the trial over with, at least that would be over for the families, the suffering families.
I understand you jumped right in and went to trials. Tell me about your first case.
Well, the first case, we decided to take a look at a case in San Mateo County and in Santa Clara County. We live in Palo Alto. So the first case was called the Maid case in San Mateo. A man had gone to counseling with his wife. He got upset, or his estranged wife, and left, and he said, I'm out of here, and the wife stayed, and about half an hour later she left. The counselor and his wife across the hall heard screaming. They found the man had stabbed his wife like 10 or 12 times. They caught him in the elevator, and he had murdered his wife. And that was our first case that I took a look at.
Wow. And what was your takeaway, and what did you do for that?
Well, being an absolute rookie to this, I just went to the first day of the court. And I walked in, and first of all, you don't know where to sit. This isn't like a wedding that's one side's on one side and one on the other. So I started watching this, and what struck me was there must have been 25 to 30 people of the wife's family that were there. Now, these people all took off from work to come to this trial, many of them from the East Bay. Anyway, the trial, there was a few minor things before, and then this case came up. The thing that really broke my heart, the judge said, is this case number 99664321? And the clerk said, no, Judge, it's 99647, whatever. There was no customer service. No, is this the May case? The next thing that happened shocked me to death, because the DA said, Judge, as we have informed you, that the defense attorney and I have agreed that we'll continue this case for 90 days. The judge says, effectively, that's good, next case. So here were 30 people, took off from work, knowing that justice would be served. Nothing happened. And no one had called them to say, nothing's happening. So that really broke my heart. So that was my very first one. And then we did have one in Palo Alto also.
What does Mothers Against Murder, MAM, do that would expedite the process or help the people in the process?
Well, first of all, because of time, and then the young woman named Margaret Petros, who's our CEO, she would inform the family, don't expect justice at this first time. and also coordinate with the DA to see if something is going to happen. Because time is money, and the real heartbreaker here is people think justice is going to be served. And in this particular case, unlike some murders, you don't know who did it or did they do it. This was very evident who did it. So we work with the families to help them with the process. One of the bigger things that we do is help them get compensation. There's a state compensation for murder victims, including burial, and so we make sure they get that. And then we, if you will, hold their hand through the court process and try to reduce the suffering, which is hard to do, but try to make it easier on the families.
What are the things that people don't know that are services, for example, that you
Well,
help
first of
navigate?
all, there's no school that you go to saying this is what you should do if there's a murder, because it comes as a shock to everyone. The law says the police are supposed to give you a pamphlet saying there are people that will help you. Each county has a victim assistance program. But in fairness, some are very effective and some are not very effective. And the other thing they are not is proactive. So first of all, most of the time, the police are looking to figure out what happened. They're not real concerned about making sure the families know what to do. So we make sure they know what to do, and if the system goes perfectly, they get their compensation and things move on. We would be out of business if the victim assistance people did the full program like we do.
I see. Tell me about the population you tend to serve.
Well, there's different kinds of people, but what I've found that I would say the majority of the cases are poor people that get murdered, and that's for a variety of reasons. And so one of the things there is just the shock. Let's say a woman's husband, she has 3 children, gets killed. How does she make the rent payment next week? And how do you bury the people? So we don't help every one of the victims, but the people that we do help, we really add a lot of value. And it's like anything. If someone kills somebody, you have the DA prosecuting it. That person gets a public defender who explains the system. But the family truly has no one. They're left alone. And of course in shock and hurt and all the other things.
Well, let's take that a little bit further. One thing that did strike me when I met you was people who work in things like this quite often arrive there from personal experience. I thought perhaps you were going to say somebody in your family had been murdered. That wasn't the case, which suggested to me that you had a level of not just empathy, but imagination to imagine what it's like to be in somebody else's shoes. So to follow that metaphor, put me in the shoes of some of these families and tell me more about the kinds of things that I probably never thought about before, what it's like.
Well, first of all, the enormous shock is the biggest thing. And like all death, I think there's a natural tendency to go inward, and the shock, and it's very hard, any kind of death. And I think that's a great example of trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. And just the total unknown about it. And for instance, in the Hispanic family, funerals are very important. But sometimes we've had cases where the system doesn't give the people the compensation and they've had to cremate someone. The other thing, there's a bunch of games that happens in this process. One game is the funeral homes know you have to bury the person, obviously, because they've been murdered, and know that you're probably not dealing with the most sophisticated people. So some of the people charge way too much. And we get involved and say, hey, where's your heart here? This is, first of all, very excess. And we've even had some people do it at a very reduced thing. So just helping the people out in the process.
So you really are navigators.
Navigators is a good one. Guides, navigators, hand holders.
Is there something about losing someone to murder that is different from losing somebody to an accident? I mean, if I am the family member, in how it affects me, is there something that is singular about murder?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the intent. Somebody took a family member's life. Now, in an accident, it could be, but this is a deliberate act of violence on someone. So there again is the why. And so many of these, there's no why. From gang initiation, for instance. How random is that? So the hurt there is, and that's even greater when the suspect is not known or found yet, because then there is also the fear. And one of the other problems in society is some of these communities don't want to, if you will, rat on other people. So the police have a harder time in these. And those are unusual cases. And the things that's frustrating to us are when the murderer is known and is captive, why doesn't the system get it done?
Well, circling back to that first case, any updates?
Well, that case finally he got sentenced to murder, but it took a long time, and it was really hard. And in that particular case, the sister felt very bad because she had always gone to the counseling with her sister, knowing this guy was, she could not go that time. So she was a mental wreck because of that. She blamed herself. But there again, there was a couple children. I don't know who the guardians are in those children. Our case in Palo Alto, a man was at a party, a young man, and some kids from Santa Cruz came there, and there was like a fight. They jumped in a SUV and took off, and the kid from Palo Alto sort of jumped on the hood, and as they backed out, he fell out. They get a couple blocks away in Palo Alto. The young man says to the girl, "Let me drive," turns the car around, comes along. They had taken the kid who was unconscious and put him on the grass on the sidewalk. He ran over the kid with the SUV and then took off. And so that was an awful thing. And Judy went to that case one of the times when they had the sentencing of that case. And we were on the front row, and it was her first time to be in a courtroom.
This is your wife?
My wife, Judy, yes. And so we're in the front row. We could hear laughing and sort of giggling sort of in the back room. Turned out it was the judge and the DA and the defense attorney. And we thought, how awful is that? So the problem with the system, like everything in life, it's just another murder. And we have a little saying, a murder is not just another crime.
Give me, on that note, give me some context. What are the numbers? Do you have numbers of?
Surely. The numbers are, and the other thing that's extremely frustrating to me is the numbers. There's about 15,000 murders every year in America, about 1,700 in California, somewhere around 300 to 400 in the Bay Area. San Jose usually has around 50. But there was a news article in the USA Today, I didn't see it on CNN, nor did I see it in the Merc or the Post or anything, of the FBI came out with the statistics on the first half of 2015. The headline read, "Murders are up 6%. But nowhere in the article was there a mention of a number. That would have been up 900 people. So we are so blasé about the numbers. It's just 6%, 3%. So that's a big number. Compare that to the number of Bay Area people got killed in the Iraq War.
Which is what?
10 maybe?
Yeah, that's a starking comparison. What about, speaking of comparisons, compare the victims' rights with the rights of the accused. There are lots of groups that protect the rights of the accused and the incarcerated. How do those two advocacy groups compare, and do you ever find yourself pitted against them?
Well, first of all, the system truly is, if someone murders someone, the system wants to protect their rights. The murderer's rights are
the accused.
The accused is the most important person, and he gets a court-appointed attorney or can hire his own attorney. Now, the family does have a DA, but no one has anyone to help them. And so the system, in my mind, breaks down from that point forward. For instance, we've come to believe that the system takes so long because judges let it happen. A continuation of another 90 days is just another 90 days. People don't think back to the suffering of the families. The other thing, and this is my personal opinion, The judge's worst fear is they will get overruled at a higher court. So they give tremendous latitude. The defense attorney says, I need more time. We have a case in San Jose that it happened over 2 years ago. 2 months ago, again, one of the games, the accused, in this case, everybody knows who did it, says, I want to fire my court-appointed attorney. And that's one of his rights. And the judge lets that happen, so the case starts again. And so this is almost 2.5 years. And in this case, there is no question who did it. This man threatened his 6-year-old son with a knife, called the mother and said, do this or I'll kill the kid. They arrest the guy and throw him in jail. An illegal immigrant in San Jose's doesn't coordinate with immigration, or he would have been sent back to Mexico. He bails out for $80,000. 2 weeks later, that's $8,000 once you put up 10%. 2 weeks later, he comes into the home where the 6-year-old boy and the 12-year-old boy are watching TV with another adult, goes in the back bedroom, stabs the mother like 10 times, runs out of the house. The 12-year-old boy goes in the bedroom and tries to keep his mother from bleeding to death. They get this man, and that happened September of 2013. And I said to the DA, Jeff Rosen, I said, Jeff, if there was ever a case, let's fast track this. And it's 2 years and 4 months. The 19-year-old daughter who lived away from the house now has 2 children as the guardian. Think of the trauma of the 12-year-old, the trauma of having 2 children. It is just awful.
So you feel there's a bias in favor of protecting the accused over the victims' families?
Yes, there isn't a lot of common sense. I mean, in this particular case, there is no question who did it. Now, why he did it, there's no question, but
But in terms of the things that you would like to see changed, who's responsible? Are there any bad guys?
Well, I think the bad guys, that's a hard one. First of all, it's just another murder, right? And personally, I don't think there's a lot of common sense. The judges don't exercise as much common sense as I would like to see. And it starts with them. They are the ultimate ones.
Let me just interject there, because one of my best friends is a judge. Could it just be that, would they say, we just have too many cases? You know, there's just not enough time and money to support this.
Well, that could be, but a common sense, if a man puts a knife to a 6-year-old kid, you probably don't want him on the street. I don't think I would like him in my neighborhood, right? Now, we have sex offenders that have to be excluded and stuff. This is, in my mind, sort of the same type of thing. So he bails out and then kills somebody. I think it starts with the judges, but the DA's a bit at fault too, because they go along with the defense attorneys. And it's easy to say, I have another case, I'm going on vacation, my mother's sick, and all that. All the while, there's no closure for the family. And that's a minor closure, because you never get over the hurt or the causes of this thing. So it could be changed. I've been doing this for 13 years, and I'm sad to say I haven't made as much progress there as I would like.
Well, I was going to ask that. How do you measure success?
Well, we measure success. Margaret Petrus, who's our CEO, when people say, Margaret, you're an angel. And because she literally drops out of heaven to these people and are of help to them. And from starting to explain the system is rotten to getting them some help. And one of our goals is just to get the folks what they're due. And but just to have somebody to go to court with. I mean, just to sit there, and Margaret is so compassionate, and because again, the system doesn't care, to be real blunt.
This does sound to me very different from banking. Are there any similarities?
Well, yes, there are. I think one of our goals when we started Silicon Valley Bank was to take the BS out of banking and we tried to make it a smoother process for people. And we were able to do that. And the bank, we started with 13 people. Now they employ 2,000 people. They're all around the world. But the basic thing is that we made the process smooth, fast, made sense to do. So the clients came to appreciate that because time is money. The same thing could happen in this if people had the desire to do it. And the problem is the system just doesn't do it. And there's a lot of talk now, and one of the themes that I'm going to talk to Margaret about is maybe we should have a little tagline, all lives matter. And we need to just say, this is baloney. We got to get rid of this. We have to
get rid of what?
We have to reduce, we never get rid of, reduce the number of murders, but reduce the time of suffering. I mean, if somebody says, I got a deal for you here, would you like to suffer 1 year or 3 years? You know, most people would say, I'll choose the 1 year. And we could do that if we had the desire to do it. It starts maybe way at the White House all the way down. At the county level, it would start with the Board of Supervisors. My friend Joe Simidian, I don't think he could probably tell you the number of murders because it's one of many things. The people in the domestic violence, we never see them. We don't see them holding the hands of the mothers in court. So there's a lot of time, effort, and money that, in my opinion, could be redirected.
How has this changed you as a person? I mean, you have these horrendous stories that you are faced with. Has it made you more cynical, more angry, more compassionate?
Well, maybe some of all of those. The thing that I guess back to my banking career is that I and others were able to change the way banking was done in our instance. And so the frustration part is knowing it could be better. It would just be, for instance, the judge says, okay, in this case, Mr. Chavez, you've done this. We're going to trial in 6 months. I don't care if anything happens. July 1st, you're going to be back in court. And all of a sudden, the system would make that happen. But what now would say, we're going to try to do it July 1st. June 1st, somebody delays it, or there's something wrong. So, see, the Constitution says that everybody has the right to a swift trial. But if you're a smart murderer, you say, I'll waive that right. So now, rather than a swift trial, it's a forever trial.
That's the downside. When do you have those moments of, yes, this is, when do you feel?
Well, there's many of those. Once, when there is a sentencing and people go. Once, another one is when you get the compensation for people. You get some money for people to have psychological help. You get some people that get a Social Security benefit. We had a case where a young man was run over on the sidewalk by a car, and the principal of the school says, well, I don't think the 7-year-old girl should come to school. So we got involved and said, this kid needs to have normalcy in her. So those are little wins, a lot of little wins. And
so you're glad you're doing what you're doing?
No, it's very, very, I wish I could do more, but we are making a difference. Sometimes I feel I wish we could make a bigger difference.
Excellent. Well, keep it up. I'm sure you're making a bigger difference than you realize. And thank you for coming, and congratulations on the award.
Well, thank you.
Do you know someone who has overcome significant hardship and has an inspiring story to tell? Someone who has sacrificed or given over and above to the community and deserves some recognition? If so, please contact us with your nomination for next year's Local Hero Awards. To find out more about our local heroes and to watch interviews with all the winners, visit our website, midpennmedia.org. At the Mid-Peninsula Community Media Center, you can make your own videos and television programs and take classes in all aspects of media production. You can also hire our professional services team. To find out more about that, go to mcproservices.com. Congratulations to all our winners, and thank you for watching.